Hi everyone, and welcome to your daily horoscope and tarot reading. Today we have a very active and powerful sky, where the star of this astrological show is definitely the new moon taking place in the sign of Taurus, but this isn't an easy energy. Today the energies are starting to build up, and this is where we are going to be challenged, we are going to be stressed, we're going to be angered and frustrated from every single direction, where both external events but also what's going on deep inside our psyche and our souls are going to be challenging us. So this definitely isn't an easy energy. The new moon on its own can be really good. It is really, really constructive. It is really, really important on the long term in the next 6 months of our lives. But today, we might struggle. We might really, really struggle accepting the truth, what are going to be revealed to us. But of course, because this new moon is taking place so very close in conjunction with Uranus, the planet of truth, so to speak, the higher octaves of knowledge, if there is a planet which symbolizes total objective truth in astrology, well, that is Uranus. So it can also be a moment of sudden realization. It can also be a massive epiphany. It can also be something that external reality reflects back at us. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be that much negative. It can also birth new ideas, new solutions, epiphanies, ingenious moments where we can all of a sudden come up with really, really good and practical future solutions, but all of these are just an idea, and accomplishing them, enacting them, putting them to good use is definitely going to be challenging, not just of all the obstacles and limitations we have in our personal lives, but also the events playing out on the world stage are definitely going to be shocking, because this is the moment when the tension, when the frustration, when the confusion is getting so intense that it's going to have like a discharge, as in a lightning strike. That is Uranus, the moment of rebellion and revolution. And of course, on one hand, it's going to be taking place virtually for now, but whatever is virtual, whatever is a fantasy, can all of a sudden become reality in the very close future. So basically, this new moon phenomenon, which is taking place today, is a absolutely beautiful complementary energy to the big changes Uranus is producing in our value system, the revolutionization of our finances, of how we govern resources, of our banking systems, how we share resources with others, and of course, most importantly, what we find valuable as a collective. So all of these are changing, evolving. It's all a big metamorphosis. So on the long term, as in the big picture, this new moon is definitely going to produce some really powerful, really significant, really important advancements technologically, informationally, collectively, so to speak. So however this has to manifest collectively, but of course, over the next 6 months and going into 2021, but personally, right now, in this present moment, it is a very stressful energy, because that conflict between Uranus and Saturn, the futuristic, solution oriented energy, and of course, Saturn, the restriction, the tradition. This is how things have to be, because this was always the way things used to be. So it is like a big ideological war between the modern approaches, the futuristic tendencies, but of course, Saturn representing the old, the traditions, how things always used to be. And somehow, yes, this is playing out on the world stage, but in a totally different manner, it is also playing out inside our psyche. So we are also rebelling against our own traditions, our own rigidity, our own bias, our own judgment, our own bad choices, and especially our own bad, toxic, not so useful routines which are actually chaining us down. So this is like a big inner revolution, but also this inner revolution in one moment in time in the future is going to be manifested on the world stage, so to speak. Another square which is definitely complicating things is Mercury receiving a conversation of tension from Jupiter and Pluto. Now, Mercury is in Aries, so it is very instinctual, it is very gut feeling based, it is extremely impulsive, and it just wants to express itself. Mercury being the planet of the mind and communication. So, this is where our communications are definitely under stress, because what does that square Mercury holds with Jupiter and Pluto represent? Well, they represent the truth, but usually the very painful truth. May it regard the world stage, centralized power, whatever is going on in external reality in the world, which we have no power over in the present moment, or at least that's how it seems. But it can also represent our inner truth, all those things that we are becoming aware of our own psychology, because this is a very powerful psychological energy. So what do we do when we are confronted with the truth? What do we do when we are confronted with really negative news entering into our sphere of awareness from external reality, news, media, internet, but at the same time, if these purges are taking place psychologically as well, well, then we have two major sources of stress, whatever is being revealed to us from our past, from our inner limitations, our bias, our judgment, and all that. So this is definitely going to be stressing all of us out maximally, and for some people this is definitely going to turn to rage, frustration, anger, where they might speak all of that, where they might express it verbally in writing, or simply somehow let other people know how they feel. So this is an energy when on the world stage it's going to lead to a big mediatic warfare, psychological warfare, fake news being challenged, conspiracies being deconstructed, conflicting information reaching us from all places. And yes, it's gonna mean online battles, and even online battles between centralized power, the representatives of the government, and those who challenge it. But the good thing is that it's still playing out online or virtually, because Mercury will only meet Eris, the goddess of discord, at 23 degrees of Aries in in a couple of days, in the next couple of days. So when they are going to meet, and when the square between Mercury, Eris, Pluto, and Jupiter is going to be exact, now that is when the bomb is going to explode, so to speak, and rage is definitely going to be expressed physically on the world stage as well. That might be potentially one of those moments when big revolutions, protests, uprising, people taking to the streets is going to take place and happen. But at the same time, Pluto being in shadow, preparing to go retrograde around Sunday. On Sunday, it's going to stand still in the sky, where it goes retrograde the next day. But when a planet is stationary retrograde, its symbolism is greatly amplified, and Pluto's symbolism of Capricorn is definitely power, the abuse of power, the misuse of power, and it also represents the truth. So it will trigger all of this abuse of power for it to act as a wake-up call for us, that we have to have a choice, a saying on how we allow that power to be used by our representatives, and to which degree can we allow for us to just, blindly follow the rules without even questioning it. But fortunately, today we're still at the very, very start of this energy, so it's just the tip of the iceberg. We're just scratching the surface. Now, another very intense and negative astrological configuration is definitely the square between Venus and Neptune. Now, Venus is the goddess of love, and Neptune is her higher octave, the planet of spirituality. But that spirituality can also have different type of expressions, like illusions, like deceit, self-deceit, lies, altering reality, escapism. So this energy is definitely going to be very heavy psychologically, because it can manifest in so many different ways, because Venus is in the sign of Gemini, a mutable energy which has so many faces to it, and Neptune being in its home of Pisces, a very strong position where Pisces is also mutable energy. Pisces is also very flexible, adaptable, just like water. It can take the shape of any container. So, for some people, this can represent personal illusions and getting lost in that illusion or fantasy. For others, it can represent severe depression, where you just don't know what's going on with you. You don't know what's going on within you. You don't know who you love, what you love, why you love, when it is a good idea to love, when it is a good idea not to invest emotional energy. For some people, it can be depression due to loneliness, feeling abandoned, feeling they have no one to talk to, no one can understand them, that their lives are totally unhappy because they're alone in their lives. For other people, it's quite the contrary, where they don't want to have anyone in their lives, they just want to stay in silent solitude and just be with themselves. So there's so many different ways this energy can manifest, but it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be stressful. It's gonna be like suffocating, like drowning in our own psyches, drowning in our own murky waters, because Pisces can also represent the past and our past traumas, our childhoods, everything negative, defeating, disempowering, oppressive that took place in our childhoods. So we can recall all of these memories, and it can just enliven the pain, the hardship, it can enliven the disappointment, the trauma. But of course, all of this is happening in order to give us the chance to purge, to release it. Importantly, all of this is about our personal illusions, because it doesn't matter what happened to us in the past, it's still just a memory, it is just still a chemical imprint in the brain, meaning that it's only real if we make it real, if we treat it as a memory, if we treat it as just a chapter of our stories which is already closed, then it cannot have that much power over us. But we have to become aware, because if this keeps running in the subconscious, then it's going to torment us all our lives without us even knowing what's going on. How can we enter a new relationship? How can we trust and love someone, new or old, or it doesn't really matter, if we are still victims in our minds? Or even more importantly, Venus in our hearts. So this is definitely triggering in some people their self-victimization tendencies, regardless of how they became victims or what their personal drama is. It's forcing them to relive it. It's forcing them to somehow immerse back into the past, so that if they have enough power, if they have enough clarity, and Venus, if they have enough self-love, they can pull themselves, that shards of their soul which is stuck in the past, out there, and just make their beings, their souls, their psyche whole again by integrating shards of their souls when in the past they were shattered, so they can reclaim those shards and just heal, just accept, just surrender the pain, and wanna live a totally different life full of freedom, especially emotional freedom in the future, where the past doesn't really matter at all. It's only the present moment and definitely the future. Now let's get on to the tarot reading. The tarot reading is opened by the moon card, which is really symbolical, because on one hand it definitely represents the effects of this new moon. It represents the stress, the tension, where we might be forced, or we might be feeling that it's not optional to come up with new solutions and inner clarity. It's almost like external reality is whipping us to embody our most ingenious, visionary, and futuristic selves so that we can find solutions, so that we can ground ourselves into something, even if it's just an idea or epiphany or the result of a brainstorming. Being, our psyche, our soul, so to speak, are really trying to support us, but sometimes this support can seem like a sense of urgency where we have no choice but to do this. And for some people, yes, absolutely, this is going to represent depression, while for others, on the other hand, the moon also represents the past and our past traumas. It represents our past wounds, which are coming to the surface, but they are not meant to hurt us, because for some people, they are meant to create that moment of confrontation when you know exactly where you stand, when you know exactly to which degree you are influenced by your past wounds, while for some people it's quite the opposite, where they are being invited to reflect and to see the truth of just how healed, just how regenerated, just how free they already are, so they don't have to fear whatever is in their memories, because it has no grip, it has no influence over them anymore. Now, the Eight of Cups and the Strength card reversed definitely refers to our value systems, especially our passions, because passion is always seen as a positive thing. Passion fuels our being. Passion is a very divine energy, so to speak, which fills us with life, which fills us with ambition, determination, which fuels our willpower, and ultimately even love, even compassion, even the superior expression of this energy, where Carl Jung referred to it as the inner creational energies, which are basically our divine spark, which some people who are more driven by their animalistic instinct use that inner creational energy as having children, reproducing, so to speak. So, passion for them takes a very carnal and material expression, but for other people, it takes the shape of artistic energies, philosophies, inner creativity, where you just simply give a totally new shape and form to your creational energies, and those, if those are based on passion, well, basically whatever you create, may it be a painting, a song, a writing, or just anything really, it is your child, because you give it life, you give it passion, you give it a little bit of your divine spark. So even if you are not aware of it always has a life of its own. So some of our passions are definitely not healthy. Some of our passions are not contributing to our highest good, to our evolution. Some of our passions are actually toxic because they're keeping us enslaved. They're making us focus on them. They are making us want to enact them, want to live them. But this is the moment of clarity and this is the moment of truth, because some passions are actually not our own. They do not source from the soul. They do not source from the divine spark. They just source from external reality. For example, some passions are totally not ours because they're projected on us by society, by the expectations of society, by the values of society. For example, buying that big expensive car, which you've always been in love with, symbolically. Well, how much is that your own desire, and how much is that simply your lust for power, to show other people your financial power? Or, for example, for some people, like becoming a very good professional, this and that, how much of it is your own desire, and how much is it the desire of your parents who invested in you, and since they invested, you feel like it is your duty to enact their investment, to satisfy them. And this can have so very many shapes and forms, but ultimately this energy is revealing to us which of our passions are our own, as in they source from our soul, and which of our passions source from totally different places, like society, like our parents, like social media, like our partners, and etc. etc. And when we realize that one of our passions, maybe which we have been maybe obsessed about, when we realize that it's actually an alien energy, that it's not really our own, we don't even know why we desired it this much. Well, that moment is always painful. That moment is always a little bit depressive, because we might also be feeling guilt why we allowed this, why we weren't, wiser, why we weren't more aware. But at the same time, it is leading to surrender. It is leading to a very significant purge, where if we symbolically exorcise that unhealthy fire energy from our beings, then it's already freeing up resources. It is freeing up very powerful mental and creational soul level energies, which we can use and invest into anything else, because energy goes where our attention, where our focus, and ultimately our passion goes. Now, for other people, especially those people who usually do creative kind of work for a living, like artists, like writers, speakers, people who work on social media, now for them, this takes a totally different dimension, where their passions might be always true, might be always come from a soul level, but if their mind attaches a very big or unhealthy or impossible expectation to their creative energies, to their passions, well, then that's already leading to failure. That is already giving us the illusion that we are failing hard at life and at everything that we do. But this energy also invites us to take a look that how that passion, how that creative energy would manifest without us suffocating it with expectations. Because just as Carl Jung said, whatever we create, whatever we invest in our creational energies into, is basically, spiritually speaking, no different than a child. So, as a responsible parent, it is within our duty to allow that child to be free, to allow that child to have a life of its own, and not so much enact our own programming, enact our own unhealthy expectations, so to speak. So for some people, this is about releasing expectations and just enjoying the randomness, the chaos of what creation is able to produce on its own. The reading is closed by the Nine of Swords and the Emperor. Now the Nine of Swords is definitely the card of depression, the card of self-defeating thought, the card of mental chaos, so to speak. So this might represent that we have already reached a moment in time when depression, when negativity, when everything that can make us really, really depressed and suffocated by depression is entering into our lives from every possible pore of external reality. May that be TV, news, internet, everywhere we look, we are just bombarded by other people's depression, by other people's fears, by other people's fantasies, by other people's schizophrenic points. So this is almost like a sentence. We're sentenced to depression because everywhere we look, it just comes into our lives and there's nothing we can do about it, except if we embody our inner emperor, which means that we are the kings of our own lives, we're the kings of our own castles, our own bosses, we have authority over our being. So in times when we know that our depression is inevitable if we keep on allowing the filth and negativity, the external negativity to enter into our lives, then we can have a choice where if we detach, if we break free, even if we have to resort to desperate gestures like to just disconnect from everything and stay in neutrality. This doesn't mean positivity. This doesn't mean that you have to turn everything around. It just means that you should be processing your own stuff, not those of other people, not those of external reality. Because if you're depressed for your own personal soul level reasons, that is your inner work, that is your inner calling, that is what you must do, and there's absolutely no room for other people or from any other external source to make your job that much harder, to depress you even more, to not even give you a fighting chance. So you need to detach and you need to enter into a healthy state of neutrality to break free as much as you can. And if you find yourself empowered, if you find yourself that you can handle your own business, you can handle your own fears, your own insecurities, your own shattered future plans, so to speak, well, then this gives you the chance to be there for others. Of course, this doesn't mean anyone. Of course, people who you love, people who you have a very strong connection with. So, this can also represent your heroic deed, your good deed of the day, because by being able to detach personally, you can help others and guide others how to detach and how to tackle their problems. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope that the power of those many multiple squares we have in the sky are not going to give you a very hard time. But if they do, if you feel totally lost and if you feel that depression is just starting to eat the core of your being, well, then know that there are always others out there who can help unconditionally. There are always people out there who are willing to listen to you. There are always people out there who are actually willing to share their energy, their hope, their faith with you. So reach out. Whenever you feel totally stuck, whenever you feel absolutely abandoned, please reach out, because Sky also has a really good and supportive energy. Mercury receives trines from Mars and Venus, and that is support, that is the power of communication, that is the benevolent power of words and healing, constructive, positive thoughts. But at the same time, there's a trine between Venus and Mars, and that is a really good energy, for it means there's always a chance to have support, because Mars is in Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism. So there are good people out there, and reaching out, Venus and Gemini, communicating, expressing your pain, expressing your feelings, can draw unexpected help into your life. Well, thank you again, and please stay safe, everyone. Bye for now.